Welcome back to the Subhan Law Show. I am your host, Adriana Rengifo, and I am joined by attorney Ili Chavez Subhan. Welcome.
Thanks, Audrey. Hey, everyone. It's great to be on the show, and I'm happy to talk about the E2 visa. It's a great option for entrepreneurs and investors from treaty countries who are looking to establish and grow their business in the United States.
For those who might be new to the topic, Ali, can you tell us more about the main purpose of the E2 visa?
Sure. So the E2 visa at its core is about fostering economic ties between two countries. The E2 visa allows foreign nationals of treaty countries to invest a substantial amount of capital in a business and then enter the United States to direct and control the operations of that company and then contribute to the U.S. economy and job creation and economic growth.
So, Ali, you mentioned treaty countries. Can you explain why this is a crucial requirement?
Sure. So the first requirement for an E2 visa is that you must be from a treaty country. That means your country has to have an international trade agreement with the United States. Currently, there are 81 countries that have treaties with the United States that you would qualify for an E2 visa. Unfortunately, if you don't have an international trade agreement or your country doesn't have an international trade agreement with the United States, then you would not be eligible.
Wow, 81 countries, that's great. Also, can you discuss the concept of substantial investment for an E2 visa? Because I know as a general rule, we recommend $100,000 as an initial investment, but can you elaborate what makes this investment substantial in the eyes of the U.S. immigration authorities?
Absolutely, Audrey. So typically, we recommend that there be $100,000 investment as a starting point, but under the regulations, there's actually no set minimum amount for an E2 visa. But practically, we see that $100,000 is a good starting point to have to invest in a business. So the cost of investing in a business really depends on multiple factors, including your business model, the industry, the location, and other factors. When you're going to be investing in a business, the U.S. government looks at what is the cost to start that business. Is that substantial for that specific business type? So, for example, McDonald's. If you're going to be purchasing a McDonald's, the starting cost could be $1 million. But if you're going to be investing in a local ice cream shop, maybe that might be $100,000. So therefore, that's why the substantial amount can be different depending on the different type of business types.
Okay, amazing. That's great. It's clear now. Ownership is another critical aspect. I know that foreign investor must own at least 50% of the E2 company. Why is this criteria important?
So the 50% threshold is an important criteria because the investors have to show that they have enough ownership to control and direct the enterprise. So the U.S. government requires that the investor has active participation in the company and not just be a passive investor.
And the business can't just be a source of marginal income, right? So what does this mean in practical terms?
Sure. So the marginality requirement means that the business must generate enough profits to provide for you and your family, as well as create jobs at the E2 company.
Now that we have that overview, I would like for you to walk us through the E2 visa application process in more detail. I know that choosing a business, forming an entity, and transferring funds is important steps in the process, but can you break down each of these steps for us, please?
Sure. So the first crucial step is to get a well-executed and drafted business plan. You have to have a well-thought-out and comprehensive business plan that goes over and outlines your business goals, your market analysis, your financial records, and really what your long-term goals for the business will be, and how you intend to develop and grow the enterprise.
And then comes forming the business entity. What are the common structures that E2 investors choose?
Typically, we see that E2 investors choose between either a limited liability company or a C corporation. It really depends on the investor's business model and their specific long-term goals. It's best to meet with an experienced immigration attorney and a tax advisor to determine which is best for you.
Okay, and now let's talk about the funds and the investment. The transfer of the fund obviously is an essential part of the E2 process. What kind of documentation is usually required to prove the source of transfer of the investment for the E2 visa process?
Sure. As the E2 investor, they need to document the source of funds and the path of those funds to their U.S. company. Generally, we recommend that E2 investors provide verifiable documentation, including bank statements, loan records, and/or inheritance documents to prove the source and path of the funds to the E2 company.
Now let's talk a little bit about the type of business. I know that if you are purchasing an existing business as an E2 investor, you can use an E2 compliant escrow agreement when purchasing a business. Can you elaborate on the benefits of this type of agreement?
Sure. So an E2 escrow compliance agreement provides a level of security for the E2 investor. Generally, if the E2 investor is going to be purchasing a company, they can draft a purchase and sale agreement with an escrow contingency clause. The sole contingency for the escrow agreement will be that upon the E2 approval, the seller will receive the funds. If the E2 visa is denied, then the buyer, which is the E2 investor, will receive their funds back. So this mitigates risk for the E2 investor.
Okay, that's helpful. And what about the decision of buying a franchise versus starting your own business? Like, what are the pros and cons from an E2 perspective?
Sure. So franchises are typically looked upon favorably by the U.S. Embassy because they have a proven business model and readily available financial data. But a disadvantage to a franchise is they offer less operational control and they may have higher franchise fees. So starting your own business, the advantage there is you can have more operational control and maybe minimize your startup cost. But both are viable options.
Okay, so you can be successful with both. That's great to hear. And once the business is established and the application is ready, what's involved in submitting the E2 visa application?
Sure. So the first step is preparing and drafting the DS-160 application and then providing supporting documentation, including evidence of your investment, financial records, and your business plan.
Then that's all set, and then it comes the interview. What are some key things that you think applicants should take into account when they are preparing themselves for the interview?
Absolutely. So preparation is key. We want to make sure that our clients feel confident going into the interview. So you want to make sure that you're reviewing your business plan and go over your investment strategy, how you intend to operate and manage the business, your financial projections, and you also want to look at the source of funds and the path of funds. How did you invest in the company, and what are you going to be using those funds for to grow the business?
And be confident.
And be confident.
And finally, once the visa is approved, what are some important things that E2 visa holders need to be aware of regarding maintaining their status?
So the E2 visa is generally granted for up to 5 years. The E2 investor needs to maintain the qualifying investment, continue to control and operate the business, and if there's any significant changes in the company, they need to meet with their immigration attorney and tax advisor.
Awesome. Ali, this has been incredibly insightful and detailed discussion about the E2 visa. Thank you for shedding so much light into this complex topic. It's clear that the E2 visa offers a valuable opportunity for many international investors. So thank you.
Adriana, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. And remember that every case is unique, so please consult with an experienced immigration attorney if you're considering the E2 visa.
And for our audience, if you are considering an E2 visa and want to learn more, we encourage you to reach out to us at Subhan Law. You can find more information in the description below. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch on the next episode.